Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. And welcome to Famous Kidev Academy. And I am Lawalulu Afemi John, also known as Famous Kidev, as some may know me as. And I'll be your tutor for today's class. Just a brief insight on who I am. I'm a product designer with over 2 years of experience, God's willing, and I'm happy to actually inspire and educate today. So let's get started and dive into today's session, understanding the UI UX fundamentals. And the reason I'm doing this is to give you more insight on what UI UX design or product design is in general, right? So that you get hands-on knowledge of what it is, and if you actually want to be a UI UX designer, or you are just joining in for the fun of it, you want to use it as a side hustle, or you want to take it on as a profession, as I am currently doing. So let's get started. Now today's class, this just a freebie. So this is our week 1 class. We have the contents, that's UI UX, UI versus UX. We also have principle of UI UX design. We have design thinking process. We have the roles in UI UX design. So today we'll be talking about the UI versus UX, and also the roles in UI UX design. I'll be picking that too. That's UI versus UX, and also the roles in UI UX design. So let's get started. So what is UX? We'll be taking them one after the other. UX is how users feel, think, and react when interacting with a product or a service. Now, just to give you guys a bit of context of what UX is, that's user experience. Before starting this session, and also while we are creating our course for our UI UX design course, I actually thought of the experience I want my students to have, right? That's thinking of how they are going to perceive the class, and they will be joining in from their mobile phones. Some are going to be joining in on their tablets. Some are also going to be joining in on their PCs and also their computers, right? So I had to make sure the experience is nice, use it from down to the font size I'm using, down to the color palette I'm using for the class, and also down to the whole hierarchy thing, right? So I want you guys to have a wonderful experience. So that's why I actually designed the slides in this manner. So that's a way to explain what the user experience is, right? It's actually the amount of satisfaction you derive from using a particular product. So we want the experience to be seamless. Another example of a good UI, I would say, is WhatsApp and Google Meet, right? That we are very familiar with. Those are one of the platforms that WhatsApp is the second most used app, right, in the whole world, and got so good it's actually owned by Mark Zuckerberg. And the experience of WhatsApp is actually seamless because we can communicate, we can send message, send voice notes, and a whole lot of features are coming in on WhatsApp. And also Google Meet is a very wonderful app that allows us to join in. We can have meetings. I can educate on Google Meet. I can also chat on Google Meet, right, and send emojis, right? I want to see you guys sending emojis. That's one of the amazing features of Google Meet. So the whole of this experience, right, is so dependent on the user experience designer. Let's go to our next slide. Now, UX, as we always say in UX design, right, bananas are easier to peel and eat compared to pineapple. Now, if I'm to offer you a banana, it will be easier for you to consume it, right? That's a very ripe banana. It will be easier for you to consume it. It's going to be soft. It's easy for you to peel. It's easy for you to chew. There won't be anything in your mouth, right? There won't be any debris in your mouth and the likes, compared to when you are served a pineapple. Now, while giving a pineapple, you have to go through the stress and hassle of cutting the pineapple, cutting it into smaller chunks, and also chewing it. Some pineapples actually have a sour taste, right? And that's like explaining what a good experience is, right? I prefer to consume banana compared to pineapple. I don't know, some people might be pineapple lovers here, but the stress of me cutting pineapple is something I wouldn't want to always do. But I can consume a bunch of banana I love bananas. Let's go to our next slide. Now, UI design, that's the user interface design, is the process of what? Of creating visually appealing and intuitive interface for digital products. Now, there are two major keywords there, right? That's the user and the interface. So it's the process of creating visual appealing and intuitive interfaces for digital products. Now, the UI design cut across creating digital products, right? Things like WhatsApp, not just limited to apps on your mobile phone, apps on what? Softwares, the UI of your PC, that's either you are using a Windows or you are using a Mac, right? Was actually designed by user experience designer, was designed by what? By UI designer, because anything you see, anything you can read, everything that you see on your screen is the user interface. Now let's go to our next slide. Just a brief of context. As I said, UI is how it works, and what? UX is what? UI is how it looks, and UX is how it works. So what we are seeing is what is the user interface, and the experience we are having here, how it works. The moment I click on this button, it takes me to the next slide. If I click on this, it takes me to the previous slide. That's the whole experience, right? So this is actually a working system that has created. Now, just so you know, right, UI is a part of what? UX design, because the whole experience is dependent on what you see. And just so you know that, right, UI is what is a part of UX. So you can't have a good experience without interacting with the interface, right? And the interface allows you to understand how it works, also give you a bit of content of what the product is all about and what have you. Now, UX applies to digital products and physical products. Yeah, just as I explained earlier, right? You can experience chewing a banana, right? And you enjoy it compared to taking a pineapple. A banana is a physical product. A digital product is a product that we use with our mobile phones or any other digital device, right? Like our computers and also our tablets. So UX cut across all. You can apply UX to everything you do, even down to how you interact with people, how you perceive people, down to actually being in a wonderful relationship with your spouse and the likes, right? You can apply the experience there. How do you experience that moment? How do you experience that relationship? Now, the next one I have here is what UI is specific to digital product, right? Now, user interface. So the interface is what you see. It's just specific to what digital products. And UX design is planning the user journey. Now, the whole experience is dependent on how the user will interact with the platform. That's moving from the login down to to completing a particular task. Now, the sole purpose of this session is to give back to the community, right? So I have to create a platform for you guys to join in first. I send in the link. You click on the link, you join in, and when you join in the session, I do a brief of introduction and others, right? So please, if you are just joining, kindly mute your mic. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. So as I was saying, I had to plan the session, right? So UX design is planning the user journey. Another key point that you need to know is that UI design is creating the interface. So the interface down to my text layer, the colors that I'm using, the frame size is what is the UI. Now, I also explained that the UI interprets the UX using visuals. So without UI, there is no UX. So both of them work hand in hand, and you need to see something, right, to be able to interact with it. Either it's physical or it's digital. So there must be an existing UI. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So what are the responsibilities of user experience designers? Why do you want to become a UX designer, right? What should you know? What will you be doing if you ought to become a UX designer? Now, you'll be doing things like user and competitor research. You'll be taking on interviews, that's interview users to understand their needs. You also be creating product flow, wireframe, and prototypes as a UX designer. you coordinate with UI designers and also developers, and in general, every team member that is working on the project. You also plan the information architecture and site maps, and also test for usability. So as a UX designer, your own sole purpose, right, is to be the voice of the user. You are the one that would be so empathetic, right? You always think of the user. In most business conversations, they only talk about creating revenue for the business. They don't talk about the consumers, right? You as the UX designer will be the one to speak for the user. So you are the voice of the user. Let's go to our next slide. UI design has responsibilities. Now, if you are very good with visuals, let's say you're a graphics designer before now, and you're trying to transition into um, product design or UI UX design, I believe that what you should have understood the basics of design. That's the basic principles of design, like things like your hierarchy, down to your proportion, down to contrast, down to white space, and all of that things, right? So you should be able to transform the UX goals, because the UX designer is going to provide you with a raw data, right? That you have to what to visualize and also make users to understand. So your own work as the UI designer is making the users to understand what the product is all about, and also creating a very good experience. That's from your visuals, your font size, down to your colors, down to every design element that you have on the interface, right? Now, design another responsibility of a UI designer is to be able to design visually appealing interfaces. Yeah, you should be very good with visuals. Simplicity is the order of the day right now, right? So we want to create something that is easy to use. You should be able to create style guides for the developers, pattern libraries, or maybe the design system. If you also want to do that, you should be able to create branding materials or guidelines. In most cases, in big companies, right? Companies like Google, companies like Apple, they actually have brand designers that design their brand assets, right? But if you are working on with a startup, in most cases, the UI designer is the one that is either going to create the brand identity and also brand material. So it's if it's included in your tax, right, you can also do that. But it's good to have the knowledge. As for me, I know how to design logos. I'm a professional brand identity designer, but I'm a professional product designer. But it's all part of what being a product designer. You have to have all those knowledge. Another thing is another responsibility of the UI designer is to be able to create pixel perfect prototypes. More note on that. So um, one thing you should know is that what you should always think UX first. Think about the experience. Create the user flow. Do your research well before you jump into what creating the user interface. Now, before having these sessions and while we were creating our course, we did a lot of research on how to understand your users, the type of language we should use, and also I did a lot of research in general, right? My target audience, and who do we want to teach, who do we want to educate, who do we want to inspire, and who are the people we want to have on our platform. So building structure, I had to like write things down before what's actually creating the WhatsApp platform, which I see as the physical product right now, right? And also creating all these slides and the course in general. So let's go to our next slide. So what are the roles in UI UX design? Because some of the roles I only listed out was those user experience designer and also the UI designer, that's the user interface designer, right? There are several roles in UI UX design or in product design in general. You can be a UX researcher, you can you can be just a UI designer, that's creating pixel perfect prototypes or creating good visuals. If you are very good at visuals, I advise that you lean more on being a UI designer. You can also be a UX writer. If you are a copywriter, you have an advantage. You can be a prototyper. If you are good with animations, I can say I'm very good with that too. That's when it comes to product design. And also you can be a UX designer and you can be a product designer. Now, just so we know, right, you might be wondering what's the difference between a UX designer or a UI UX designer and a product designer. Now, here is the difference. A UI UX designer is so much concerned about the whole experience of the product. You are not concerned with the business, right? Most of your own concern or your responsibility is how the user is going to perceive the product and the whole experience in general. But the product designer now needs to think about the company, right? He needs to think about the business goals, has to think about how the product is going to scale, and a whole lot of things, right? So as a product designer, you are in charge of both the product and also the business. So that's all for our freebie, and thanks for joining in, and you guys are amazing.